The boxes weren't even unpacked yet when I heard a furious pounding on the front door. I had just moved into what I thought was my dream home, a peaceful lakeside retreat, far from the noise and drama of the city. But instead of a warm welcome, I was met with angry faces and sharp demands. 3 people stood outside, each holding a clipboard like it was a weapon. One of them, a stern woman with piercing eyes, immediately began speaking in a rehearsed tone. "We're from the Lakeshore Community HOA," she said briskly.
You're in violation of community regulations. You've been using Marina access without HOA authorization. You need to sign this agreement and pay a $2,500 annual fee starting
Today? Asterisk, I blinked, confused. I hadn't even touched the water. The lake was quiet, untouched, and I had been focused on unpacking boxes and settling in. "I'm sorry, but I bought this property with lake access included," I replied. "It's written into the deed." Asterisk, the man standing next to her stepped forward with a smirk. "Things have changed. The HOA revised the lake access policy last year. You need board approval now, or you're trespassing." The third person, who hadn't said a word, just glared at me like I was already guilty. Asterisk, I stood in stunned silence. Was this some kind of mistake? I had done everything legally, gone through every document with my realtor. Even double-checked that I had permanent access to the lake and marina. But the HOA didn't care. They didn't ask for context. They didn't ask who I was. They just wanted control. Asterisk, the woman shoved a paper toward me and tapped it aggressively. "This needs your signature. Otherwise, you'll start receiving violation notices and penalties." I didn't even take the paper. I looked her right in the eye and said, "I'm not signing anything today. I'll be speaking to my lawyer." Her expression shifted, like she wasn't used to being challenged. And with that, they turned and walked away, whispering among themselves. Asterisk, as I closed the door, I felt a rush of anxiety, but also something else, a spark of determination. I knew something was off. They were bluffing. They had no idea who they were dealing with. Asterisk, what those HOA bullies didn't know was that the lake they were so desperately trying to control had been a part of my life since I was a kid. That marina they claimed I had no right to. It wasn't just some public launch or shared community dock. It was part of my family's legacy. My grandfather had purchased and developed the marina decades ago. Long before there was an HOA, long before this area was even considered upscale. He ran it as a small family-owned business, offering boat rentals, dock space, and private access to lakefront residents and tourists alike. It was a place where I spent every summer as a boy, cleaning fishing gear, washing boats, helping visitors, and learning the ins and outs of lake life. Asterisk, when Grandpa passed away, the marina was left to my uncle, who kept it running and kept it independent. No HOA involvement, no politics, just honest service to the people who loved the lake. So when I found out a property right next to the marina was up for sale, I saw it as fate. I called my uncle right away. "Is this the spot next to the boathouse?" I asked. "Yep," he said. "You buy it, I'll give you full access. Family rates. Free for life." Asterisk, and he did. Not only did I get a killer deal on the house, but I had a written agreement from my uncle granting me unrestricted access to the private marina, a key to the boat launch, and even a reserved dock space with my name on it. My deed clearly stated I had lake rights. I wasn't cutting corners. I wasn't sneaking around. I had legal, documented access to everything that HOA tried to bully me out of. Asterisk, they had no idea that I wasn't just some naive city guy buying. A lakeside view was part of the foundation this place was built on. That marina had been here long before their HOA charter ever existed, and now they were trying to muscle me out, hoping I'd just roll over and pay a ridiculous fee for something I already owned. Asterisk, but that's where they miscalculated. I wasn't going to cave. I wasn't intimidated. In fact, I was just getting started. If they thought I was the kind of neighbor who would quietly hand over thousands of dollars and surrender my rights just to avoid conflict, they were about to learn a hard lesson. Asterisk, just a week after that tense visit from the HOA, things escalated fast. I had a feeling they wouldn't back down quietly, so I did what any reasonable person in today's world would do. I installed security cameras. 3 of them, actually. One by the front door, one facing the dock, and one overlooking the side yard where the path to the lake ran. I didn't want trouble, but I also wasn't about to leave myself open to more surprises. And sure enough, that precaution paid off. Asterisk, I came home late Friday afternoon after running errands in town. I immediately knew something was wrong. My front yard looked like a construction zone. There were giant red signs staked into the grass. Unauthorized lake use, HOA violation, trespass warning, and fines pending. Do not access water. The kicker. Yellow caution tape was wrapped around my dock like it was a crime scene. But that wasn't even the worst part. Someone had dumped what looked like a couple of wheelbarrows of sand directly over the boat ramp, making it completely unusable. It was deliberate sabotage, meant to make a statement. Asterisk, my hands were shaking as I unlocked the door, but not from fear, from pure frustration. I hadn't even had the chance to enjoy my lake view, and these people were treating me like a criminal. I sat down, pulled up the camera footage, and what I saw made my jaw drop. There they were, 2 of the same HOA board members from the previous visit sneaking onto my property in the early morning hours. One held a hammer and signs, the other rolled in a bin of sand and dumped it right at the launch. They even fist bumped each other and laughed as they walked away. Asterisk, I didn't scream. I didn't call them. I didn't even get angry. Instead, I edited together a short clip of the footage, added a timestamp, and posted it online with a simple caption. This is what happened 1 week after I moved into my new home. Welcome to the neighborhood, I guess. Asterisk, I didn't expect what happened next. The video exploded. By the next morning, it had thousands of views, shares, and comments. People from all over the country chimed in. Lawyers, homeowners even. Ex-HOA board members. That's trespassing. It's total abuse of power. You need to sue them immediately. Others shared their own HOA horror stories, some eerily similar to mine. It turned out that a lot of people had been waiting for someone to expose the ugly truth behind these neighborhood dictators. Asterisk, local news outlets picked it up. A reporter reached out and asked if I'd be willing to do an interview. I agreed. Not because I wanted attention, but because I knew this wasn't just about me anymore. If they could do this to me, someone with legal rights, video evidence, and a support system, they could do it to anyone. The HOA didn't just mess with a new homeowner. It messed with the internet. The internet was not on their side. Asterisk. Within a month, the fallout was undeniable. The HOA president, the same woman who'd knocked on my door with demands and threats, quietly resigned. No grand announcement, no explanation, just a brief email to the neighborhood homeowners stating she was stepping away for personal reasons. But everyone knew the truth. The backlash had grown too big to ignore. News coverage, viral videos, community outrage, it all added up, and the real kicker. That video of her trespassing on my property was still making rounds online, getting stitched into compilations about HOA horror stories and neighborhood power trips gone wrong. Asterisk, as more people came forward. It became clear my case wasn't isolated. Residents from all around the area began sharing their experiences, unexplained fines, arbitrary rules, pressure to sell their homes, even threats of liens for violations that didn't exist. A class action lawsuit began forming almost overnight. Former board members, some of whom had been quietly pushed out before, came forward with documents and emails showing just how far the HOA had strayed from its original purpose. What was meant to be a simple neighborhood management committee had turned into a group obsessed with control and money. Asterisk, the remaining HOA board members scrambled to cover their tracks. Emergency meetings were held, lawyers were hired, and damage control letters were sent out. The truth had already spread. People stopped trusting them. Homeowners demanded a full audit of all HOA financial records. And when those were finally released, even more inconsistencies and questionable expenses came to light. Asterisk, meanwhile, my life had completely changed for the better. With the HOA off my back, I could finally enjoy the home I'd worked so hard to buy. I upgraded the dock, added comfortable seating and string lights, and started hosting weekend barbecues with family and friends. My uncle even installed a floating deck platform just for fun and gifted me a small fishing boat to celebrate what he called our victory over nonsense. Asterisk, surprisingly, neighbors who had once kept their distance began stopping by to say hello. Some apologized for not speaking up earlier. Others thanked me for taking a stand. I heard stories about the HOA threatening people for putting up the wrong color shutters, or denying backyard playsets for children because they didn't match the community aesthetic. One man even admitted he had considered moving away, entirely until now. Asterisk, the fear that had once loomed over the neighborhood began to fade. People started reclaiming their homes, questioning the rules, and remembering what it meant to actually enjoy the place they lived in. The marina became more than just a dock again. It became a symbol of standing up for what's right. I never set out to start a movement. I just wanted peace, quiet, and a view of the lake. Asterisk, but if standing my ground helped others find their voice too, then it was all worth it. The HOA came in demanding my lake access. Now, they don't even have access to their own power. Turns out, messing with the marina owner's nephew was the worst mistake they ever made. Asterisk, that weekend, everything shifted. My uncle, the rightful owner of the marina and someone who had built a reputation as a no-nonsense businessman in the community, decided it was time to step in. He wasn't the kind of guy who liked drama. In fact, he usually avoided it. But after seeing the footage and hearing how the HOA had tried to intimidate me, he'd had enough. "They're messing with the wrong family," he said bluntly over the phone. "A time to make things official." Asterisk, he showed up Monday morning, not alone, but with a lawyer by his side and a folder thick with land deeds, permits, marina records, and a timeline of ownership that dated back more than 50 years. To top it off, he'd invited the local news crew that had reached out to me, and they brought their cameras rolling right into the HOA office as my uncle requested a formal meeting with the board. Asterisk, the HOA had no idea what was about to hit them. They were expecting to scare off a new homeowner, not face a property owner with decades of legal documentation and the full backing of local media. When the meeting began, my uncle laid everything on the table. He spoke calmly but firmly, making it crystal clear that the marina was, and always had been, independent of the HOA. He reminded them that the marina's access roads, boat launch, and even the land connecting it to my property had never been under HOA control, nor would they ever be. Asterisk, this isn't some shared park or HOA maintained dock, he said as cameras rolled. This is a private business. This dock you keep taping off? It sits on property lines that your group has never had authority over. My nephew's access is legal, contractual, and permanent. And your actions? What you did to his property? That's not only harassment, it's trespassing. Asterisk, one of the HOA board members tried to interrupt with a folder of their own, but the lawyer my uncle brought shut it down instantly. You've already overstepped. We've documented video evidence, survey records, and now public attention. Unless you'd like to explain your actions in court and on the 6 o'clock news, I suggest you stop immediately. Asterisk, the room fell silent. The HOA president, the same woman who'd pounded on my door days earlier, sat with her arms crossed, clearly seething but powerless. It was obvious she'd hoped for a quick power play, a scare tactic that would end with me caving to their rules. Instead, she was now being recorded as the face of a potential lawsuit and a public scandal. Asterisk, later that evening, the story aired on the local news. Even used the headline, "Marina owner defends nephew from HOA harassment." Uncle stood by the dock in the broadcast, explaining calmly how the HOA had no right to interfere. The footage of the HOA members vandalizing my property ran right after that. The response was explosive. People from neighboring communities started asking questions. Other residents in my area came forward with their own complaints about the HOA. Apparently, I wasn't the first person they had tried to push around. Asterisk, and just like that, the signs in my yard disappeared. The caution tape vanished. Not another notice was posted on my door. I knew it wasn't over for the HOA. What they started as a quiet attempt to intimidate had now become a very public embarrassment. and the consequences were only just beginning, asterisk.